Welcome back. My name is Arya, and I don't waste your time, so let's get straight into it. I don't mean it as hyperbole. I genuinely believe this is perhaps one of the stupidest sell-offs that I've seen in any of the stocks over the past couple of years. Obviously, we've seen a sort of trend of AI is disrupting XYZ company. We saw it with Google, we saw it with Uber, we saw it with a variety of different companies. Duolingo, of course, has had its fair share of AI fears and the sell-off that ensued afterwards. Some of these fears have some merit to it, but I genuinely believe out of all these options, out of all these sell-offs, Booking.com selling off as a result of AI might be the stupidest out of all of them. And it comes down to just a few very basic mathematical facts as to why this ultimately doesn't matter. And more importantly, the strategic positioning of the company that has been built over the past 2 decades. And so I think a good place for us to start is what exactly happened. Booking.com, if you didn't know, on I think it was Wednesday or Thursday or something like that, Booking and Expedia, they went down by about 7% each. And the reason they went down is because Google released this new AI flights mode, something like that. AI flights deal. They're basically making it a little bit easier for you to kind of, tell them, oh, I want to travel to Paris, for example. It shows you the flights to Paris in like an AI manner. It helps you plan it. And, there's an interface for you to kind of interact with AI to be able to find your flights easier. Now, the reason why this ultimately doesn't matter is well, there's a lot of different reasons why it ultimately doesn't matter, but the basic mathematical truth, the reason why this ultimately does not impact Booking.com and Expedia, I would assume, is the same thing, although I've not really looked into that business as much. But Booking.com is not a flights business. Plain and simple. It is a hotels business. They make 90% plus of their revenues from hotels. And embedded into that, they make the bulk of their revenues, particularly in Europe. And so this news of Google rolling out a flights business or whatever, or being able to aggregate flights across 60 different languages, 200 countries, whatever, it doesn't impact Booking because that's not where they make their money. And so naturally, one can make the argument, okay, but if they're rolling this out for the flights business, naturally the next sort of adjacency that Google would get into is they roll it out for hotels. And isn't hotels part of the Booking business? Or you just said 90% of their revenues comes from hotels. So if they roll out something similar for hotels, that could spell bad news. That's why the stock traded down. Oh, it's a rational sort of question mark or fear around the business of Booking. Same thing as all the other different AI stocks where there's now like a narrative around it. There's a question mark around it, right? Again, you would be completely wrong. And to kind of show that to you, I want to go over to the sponsor of today's video, Fiscal AI, because as a part of Fiscal AI, not only can, you get access to all these different beautiful charts and valuation data and all that great stuff. You guys have seen me use this over and over again. But as a part of this, you can also get access to the Morningstar report. And I want to read you a couple sentences from the Morningstar report because I think they do a phenomenal job kind of catching us up to speed in terms of the business of Booking.com. And so naturally, I think you kind of derive your own conclusions after kind of starting to understand the moat of Booking.com. By the way, if you want to gain access to this 2-week free trial, no card required, the link for that is in the description down below. So for starters, under the economic moat section, they run us through how Booking has 4 million accommodation properties across the world in 40 languages, consisting of 500,000 hotels, motels, and resorts. And then they also have other unique places to stay at about 8 million listings, which I think the total here comes out to roughly 12-ish million listings. That compares to about 3 million properties for Expedia and then about 8 million for Airbnb, right? So just to kind of give you sort of a size and scale as to how massive this business is. And then at the bottom here, this is the key. They say, importantly, Booking's supply of accommodations includes a leading presence in international markets, which have more boutique hotels than branded chain hotels. In fact, in Europe and Asia, independent hotels represent about 60 to 65% and 50% of each market, respectively, versus the only 30% in the US. The relative fragmentation of the international hotel market makes it more time-consuming and costly to aggregate and manage because these boutique hotels, this is the key, are too small to effectively market on their own. Their dependency on online travel agencies for marketing and distribution is greater and stickier in our view. Basically, what they're saying there is particularly in the international market where Booking has a very, very strong presence in Europe and Asia, the market is more fragmented. You have these so-called boutique hotels, which if you don't know, boutique hotels essentially refers to hotels that it's not like a big chain hotel. It's a Hilton or a Marriott or whatever. It's maybe a couple different hotels owned by a local hotel operator, and that's it. Maybe it's just like a single standalone hotel in Barcelona that is owned by one person, and that's it. They only operate that hotel. And so as a result of that, they usually don't have much marketing power. They kind of rely on listing on a booking.com for Booking to essentially market on their behalf, aggregate customers, and then they, of course, kind of reap the benefits of that because customers are coming to booking.com to book hotels. And particularly in a market such as Europe, where booking.com makes the bulk of their revenues, the fragmentation is a lot more than something like North America. In North America, we only have about 30% of hotels being independent operators, whereas in Europe and Asia, 60 to 65%, or in Europe, 65%, and then in Asia, it's about 50%. So the point here is, by mathematical fact, booking.com, their supply base, the hotels that are on booking.com, are very fragmented. And as a result of that, when you look at what Google is doing, and the Google Flights thing is not something new. It's been around for 2 decades. When you look at the Google Flights thing, the reason they're able to do something like that is because airlines en masse are massive, massive companies, right? I know, speaking locally in Toronto, I think the smallest airline that we have here has like 30 planes. So that alone, like their assets of that business, if we're saying each plane is like, I don't know, $10 million, you're looking at least $300 million in terms of assets. Your local hotel that is a single operator in Barcelona, they're maybe doing a couple $1 million of revenue total. So that company does not have the marketing power to be able to list or compete for sponsored listings if Google were to roll out an AI mode for hotels, right? The entire moat of booking.com, the entire existence of this business is that it aggregates a massive amount of supply because these hotels can't do it by themselves. They're too small to be able to do it for them by themselves. That's the entire mode of the company. The entire bull thesis on the business is that single fact. They go on here as well, and they say the market beneath Booking, Expedia, and Airbnb is highly fragmented, making it extremely challenging for any small competitor or new entrant to gain customer traffic or supplier scale. In the online travel agency industry, a successful travel network not only involves attracting and keeping personnel and managing suppliers, but also heavy advertising expenses to attract and retain traffic to the platform. So they're kind of describing a network effect here, right? So not only do you need a lot of hotels to list on there, which, by the way, if these are small hotels, then they're more incentivized to go for the biggest network that already exists, that's proven, that's existed for 2 decades, such as a Booking or an Expedia, whatever. But also on the flip side, Booking is spending, as it's noted here in the Morningstar report, they're spending $7 billion of marketing per year to try to attract that traffic, to try to attract customers like you and I to go onto the app, to go onto the website and look for hotels. And so again, using the great, powerful Fiscal AI, which you can get a 2-week free trial, no card required, with the link in the description down below, we can go down here, we could open up the SG&A and we're able to see that the marketing expenses is a line item completely on its own. So if we toggle that on, we'll see that, as it was noted with Morningstar, they're spending roughly $7-8 billion of just pure marketing expenses per year. That accounts for roughly 30% of their total revenues, which is just a massive, massive number. And where do you think the bulk of these marketing dollars is going? The answer is an estimated $5 or so billion of this is going directly into the pockets of Google for Google search, because Booking.com is, on behalf of all of those small little boutique hotels, they're spending these marketing dollars and using their massive scale as a sort of like bargaining tool to be able to obviously get like the favorable rates on those ads. And they're kind of doing marketing on behalf of their suppliers, on behalf of their boutique hotels. And so there's a quote by Charlie Munger where it says, "Show me the incentive and I'll show you the outcome." Anytime there's a risk to a business or whatever, or there's a narrative that comes with a company, this is generally something that I try to promote with my channel. If you're going to take something out of the videos, take this with you. Use a first principles line of thinking. So ask yourself this question: what is the incentive of Google in this scenario, right? They have a business that is giving them roughly 70-80% operating margin revenues in Booking.com. When they spend that money on Google search, that's a very, very high margin revenue that Google is getting from Booking.com, Trip.com, Expedia, Airbnb, etc. The whole pie, right? And we know that Booking on its own is doing like $5, maybe $6 billion of marketing spend on Google. I would assume the other guys combined, maybe everything together is maybe about $15 billion of revenue. That is a substantial portion of Google's just total search revenue. They're getting maybe about 10-ish%, maybe a little bit more of the entire search revenue is just coming from travel. So it's a massive, massive category for them. It's very important that they keep those revenues intact and try to not hurt it. So ask yourself this question. If you're Google today, yes, you have created this leading AI model. It's fantastic. There's a lot of different business use cases. There's a lot of things you can start to get into. Is it in your best interest to try to hurt or in some way replace Booking.com, replace all the travel aggregators, and do it in-house and do it yourself? The answer is very obviously no. You would rather keep the structure that is in place today, where Booking.com has hundreds of millions of customers that go onto Booking.com to book travel. Keep that same structure. Let them aggregate the supply and continue to aggregate the supply. And instead, they just pay you through marketing dollars. So you still benefit from travel altogether because Booking is spending advertising on search, but at the same time, you don't have to deal with all the customer service. You don't have to deal with aggregating the supply base. You don't have to deal with any of that stuff. And all you do is you collect 70-80% margin revenues anyways. Like how much better does that get? If they do it in-house, will they really be able to churn out a stronger business? Will they really be able to aggregate, 12, 13 million different boutique hotels or just hotels in general on Google Hotels or whatever they're going to name it? No, the answer is very obviously no. They're not going to aggregate all these different hotels. By extension to that, it doesn't even make sense. If they were to aggregate all those hotels, they wouldn't actually turn a profit on it. It's more profitable to keep the same structure and less risky, frankly, to keep the same structure, make the marketing dollars off of Booking.com and not destroy an entire category of travel marketing dollars for your core search business, which is absurdly high margin. You guys are starting to get the idea. Show me the incentives and I'll show you the results. Charlie Munger, thank you very much for that unbelievable quote. Another thing I'd like to kind of point to as, even if you argue, okay, but Google, maybe they'll launch this, but of course they're not going to, go out and really try to promote it, whatever. It's kind of like a service that they have there as an adjacency, whatever the case is, right? Another thing you miss is it's not like Booking is getting all of their traffic through advertising. It's not like, you search for a hotels in Barcelona and then there's a booking link and then you click there and then that's how you book it. No, about half of the traffic that goes to Booking.com is direct. People are searching for Booking.com or they're opening the app Booking.com and then they're looking for the trip. So Booking.com is a bit of a search engine in of itself. And this percentage of quote unquote direct traffic, people going directly to the Booking.com services, it has continuously gone up over the past decade. And it's going to continuously go up over time. People are directly going to Booking.com and then they're looking for their hotels. And then they're looking for vacation rentals or stays or boutique hotels, whatever the case is. And so we have concrete numbers on this. The number of monthly visits to Booking.com stood at 545 million. This is in September 2025. This is just 2 months ago, right? And it dwarfs its competition. For Airbnb, we have roughly 74 million. For Expedia, it's 74 million and Airbnb is 87 million. Again, very respectable, but Booking is just operating at a completely different scale, and that shows in the numbers. There's a reason why Booking can charge a higher take rate. There's a reason why they're doing a lot more in terms of gross bookings. There's a reason why they have higher margins than the other two. In a scale-driven industry, oftentimes it's winner takes most. You could see this with Uber, for example. Uber does, I think, 8 times more in terms of gross bookings, but their market cap is 20 times higher. The market is bidding a higher value to the Uber business. They're placing a bigger premium on the Uber business because in a scale-driven industry, this is a fact, in a scale-driven industry, the biggest scale player tends to be a winner takes most. They tend to reap the most benefits of the entire industry. They have more scale. They're able to provide a more efficient service to their customers, a bigger supply base, more selection, more convenience, lower wait times in the case of an Uber. I don't think that really applies to Booking's case. Point is, better service overall, more scale. It's a better company. You see this with Amazon as well, right? And so to summarize the entire points of this video, one, Booking.com is not even a flights business. So the immediate threat of, they're getting into the Booking.com business and they're going to delete the entire flights revenues of the company. No, that just doesn't make sense. Flights was never a core competency of Booking. If I were to take a guess, honestly, flights probably makes up a low single-digit percentage of Booking's revenues. We don't have any concrete numbers on this, but that's just my guess as to how much money they actually probably make from that. It's not much. It's probably lower margin as well. And it was never going to be a big business for them because just given the industry dynamics, usually airline companies are better capitalized than single boutique hotels in Barcelona. As a result of that, they have more bargaining power with marketing, right? So point number one, flights was never their business. It doesn't really matter. Point number two, okay, they got into flights, so maybe they can do hotels next. It doesn't make sense. The core business of Booking is single location hotels spread across Europe. It is a naturally very fragmented market. It took Booking 2 decades for them to aggregate all of these hotels. Google's not going to be able to do it because of some shiny new AI tool over the next year. It just will not happen. Point number three, it's in Google's best interest for them to not actually do that. They will lose money if they quote unquote disrupt Booking.com because the core revenue dollars coming from search, coming from the marketing spend of search from travel is actually the biggest pie of the search revenue out of any other category. You know, I have a chart on this. Okay, I can't seem to find the chart exactly, but this is an article from 2018. This is 7 years ago. And 7 years ago, they were spending $1 billion a quarter. So this, honestly, almost all of Booking.com's $7 billion of marketing spend might be spent on search ads. So, I mean, that's a massive amount of Google's total revenue pie. I think Google search does about 200 billion. of search revenue. So we're looking at booking alone is probably in the mid-single digits. So roughly, I don't know, 6-7-ish%. Broadly speaking, I think the entire travel industry is spending around, give or take, 15-20-ish billion dollars, maybe a little bit more on Google search. So that's at least 10% of Google's total revenues is coming from the travel industry. And then we have our chief analyst, Mark Mahaney here, of course, a big fan favorite of the quality investors. But in 2018, he estimated north of 80% of bookings total marketing goes towards Google. So, I mean, I would assume those numbers hold over time. So point number one, flights is not their business. Point number two, it's a massively fragmented market to begin with. Google cannot aggregate that even if they really wanted to. It would take them multiple decades. And in most cases, these companies don't even, they don't have a website that you could book off of. Their entire business is that they've listed on booking.com. They've listed on trip.com, Expedia, whatever. And then point number three, of course, it's in the incentive of Google to just not even disrupt these companies, quote unquote, to begin with, because they're making 80% margin revenues from the marketing spend of the travel industry broadly. And so with that, thank you very much for watching. Before you leave, I'm planning on feeding the homeless. So if you do want to, kind of help out the cause from now until Christmas, whatever money I make off of the Discord or / the Patreon, I'm going to be donating all that, not donating, I'm going to be buying food for the homeless people and then feeding them on Christmas Day. If you want to be a part of that, if you want to help out, it's $3 a month. The link for that is in the description down below. I think it's the second link after the fiscal link. So 100% of what I make from now until Christmas is going to the homeless, and then maybe we could kind of turn this into a sort of annual thing and do some good. Thank you very much for watching, and have a great day.